All right, so one thing I need to warn you is that I usually don't notice chat messages coming in. So if you have the ability to speak, go ahead and speak. If you don't, then go ahead and chat. Hopefully I'll notice it. And if anybody else notices a chat message coming in that I don't see, then please let me know about it, all righty? Because I know I can start a chat, but I don't really get a strong enough notification of them once they actually get going. All right, so since this is a programming course, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to write a program. Skip the syllabus, skip everything else, we're going to write a program. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it. Using an online version of C++. That doesn't mean I want you to do your homework using an online version of C++. But as a quick and dirty way of doing it, you know, if you're sitting down at a machine that doesn't have a C++ installed on it, or if you're sitting there bored with your Android or your iPad or something, and you want to write a C++ program, you actually can. What you would do is you would go to Google and type in, I need to change something, and I hope I already changed it. Yeah, it looks like I did. Alrighty. You're going to type in online C++. Go to Google and type online C++. And you get a whole bunch of different ones. I don't really have a reason to choose one over the other. So I'm going to just choose REPL.it. REPL, it doesn't matter which one. They all probably will work about the same. All right, and it comes up with this little screen here showing some code. I don't quite know if you can see it. I'll try to zoom in the text. I'm not sure that's going to work. Yeah, looks like it's working. All right, so here's our program. If you went to REPL.it, like I did, if you went to REPL.it/languages/.cpp, that's where it'll take you. Anyways, I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to delete all of it, and I'm going to retype it. And if you can get this window open and still watch the Zoom and you want to type along with me, that's totally cool. If you can't, that's I understand. Just a sec. All right, so every program I do is going to start with a # include IO stream. So # include less than IO stream STREAM greater than. And then I'm going to add another line that says using space namespace, no spaces between the words name and space, right? Using space namespace space std semicolon. All right, and then I'm going to do void main parentheses in parentheses, and it's okay if you play along and if it's okay if you don't. And then after the void main parentheses in parentheses, I'm going to do these curly braces, which are, if you've taken fundamentals with Python, these serve the same purpose as putting a colon here at the end of main and then tabbing over. In this language, tabbing is not mandatory, but it's still useful to make it look comprehensible, right? So cout, COUT, space, less than, space, quote, hello world, exclamation mark, end quote. Whoops. And then a semicolon after the end of it all. Now, since I've changed the font size, it's kind of looking really, it's not working real well for me, so I'm not going to keep using this one for long. And then return semicolon. Like that. And it seems to indicate that it wants me to change this void to the word int. So I'm going to highlight it by double clicking it and change that word void to int. And that means I need to change my return function to not just return semicolon, but to return space 0 semicolon, like that. All right, so there's my program. So I'm always going to be adding that. And then there are some other things I'm always going to be adding as well. And so we'll make what's called a boilerplate file that we just copy and paste into every program that we run. And then we do this, and I'll explain later what that statement does. And then we have this, which is like a DEF. This defines a function. If you've taken fundamentals, then you know what a function is, and you know what defining a function. So instead of DEF main parentheses colon, we have int main parentheses with no colon. And then we have the curly braces, which mark off a block of code. And then we have cout less than less n. This is the same as a print statement. If you've done Java, you've done Python, you've seen the print statement. Well, cout stands for console output. Well, what does console mean? Well, the console is like, just a second. Come on. All right. You ever seen a window like this? Not going to start, is it? There we go. That's a console, right? Now, we're not going to run our stuff from a window like this, although it'd be a useful skill to learn. But when we run our code, we're going to get a window where we see the output and we can type in our input, just like you did with idle in Python if you did that. All right, so I'm going to come over here and click the run button. Here it is, run. And it's going to print out hello world. And I've got a great sense of accomplishment. It's even telling me the command that compiled it. If you were at a command line, you could type that command in and get your program to compile. So most of us are going to be using Visual Studio. How many folks are on here are using something other than Windows? Because if nobody's using anything other than Windows, I'm going to stop saying, well, on a Mac, you're going to do this, right? But if we got Mac users on here, don't worry, works just fine. But yep. Alrighty. So Victor, no problem. But you're going to want to use Xcode, Xcode, if you possibly can. Where do you get Xcode? You come up to the App Store. Oh, well, you've already got it? Alrighty. Well, then you're 10 steps ahead of the gang. Alrighty. Cool. Excellent. Okay. So I wrote my first program. I'm feeling really good. If you ever see me create a program and then you wish you could run it, but you're having a hard time getting it typed in or something like that, I can save this as a TXT file and paste it into chat so that you could run it if you so chose. Let me just do that just this one time for funsies. Sorry, I'm running Windows on my Mac and it's confusing me. All right, so over in the chat, I can send that file to everybody. And then you can grab it and run it, right? And so if at any time, if you ever want a copy of what I'm doing, go ahead and ask for it, right? Also, you can slow me down and tell me to pause and scroll up and scroll down. I will always take all the code that I type in and all the notes that I type in and upload them to the lecture folder when we're done. So what's a lecture folder? Lecture folder is, if we go into Canvas, I'm going to close this window now, I'm done with it. Unless anybody needs a second to look at it. Wish this thing would go away, but it doesn't want to, so alrighty. Going to Canvas. Everything we do, you can find either in modules or assignments, pretty much. Whoops, wrong class. We're not ready to take our final exam yet, so why don't we go into the correct class? All righty. So if you click on modules, you see lots of information. Looks like I could delete this one, or at least, yeah. All right, so you'll see our list of PowerPoints, but if you scroll down almost to the bottom, you'll see chapter 1, and there's a lecture folder. So at the end of the lecture, or after you've watched a lecture video, you're going to want to open up the lecture video form, download it. It's just a little RTF file, which stands for rich text format, which can be opened on, any platform, Mac, Windows, whether you got Word or not, it ought to work. But if you can't get it to work, then you can create the same thing inside just a text file or anything. You know how to do that kind of thing. So anyways, and here's what you're supposed to fill in. Now, you're not going to have to do this after today's lecture, but for every other lecture, I want you to do this. This is proof that you attended the lecture. I can't really take attendance, right? I mean, I guess I could, but let's not bother. And it proves you were here, and you get a little list of the things that you learned. So, your name. Which video did you watch? Well, I'm watching Lecture A. I could just delete all that and say Lecture A, right? And the date, it's June 1st. Did you look at the daily notes from the video? Yeah, I sure did, right? You're going to have looked at the notes just by watching the class. And then what did you learn from the video? Whatever, right? And you type in some stuff. I learned how awesome C++ is. I listened to the professor drone about the syllabus, that kind of thing, right? So please write at least 4 sentences describing what you learned. Now, you don't have to write, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs or whatever. Now, one thing you could do, I'm not going to even do one thing you can do over. All right, and then you'll upload that into the folder. Now, just this one time, I'm going to make it so that all you have to do is upload a note saying that you were here, right? But there wouldn't be anything wrong with doing it as a lecture video form. So if you want to do it like that, that'd be fine. As a matter of fact, I should make you do it like that because you're going to be doing it the rest of the way each time. So at the end of the class, I'll go ahead and upload. I'll submit like it was a file assignment there. And so when you go to this folder in the future, after the video has been uploaded to YouTube, you'll see the video for the day and you'll see all the notes that I typed in. Right now, I haven't typed any in, right? So you don't see them there. And right now the video's not done recording, but they will be there. So then when I'm ready to submit my document, here's what it's going to look like. I'll go in, well, let me go into student mode first. So I'm going to submit the assignment. What I'll need to do is I'll need to go and find that lecture review form that I downloaded. Or just for today, if you feel like it, you could click on text entry, and say, was here, whatever. But after that, you're going to need to do the video review forms. And I don't care if you do that right now, right? If you want to go ahead and do that right now, even while we're talking, rather than wait till the end, that's fine with me. Be a good idea for you to stay and watch the rest of the lecture though, right? All right. So after every lecture, there will be some homework assignment. Usually I'll assign 1 per lecture. Right now, the homework is to, I need to publish it. Oh, where'd the file go? I was sure I had this here. All righty. Sorry about that. Meant to have that ready. All right, so the first homework assignment. If you're using Windows, you'll want to use Visual Studio. Now, there are other C++ development tools, and so if you feel brave, you can go and find a different one, but I'm going to be showing you how to use Visual Studio each time we get on here. So you can download it here. Actually, I'm going to give you a different URL, so don't necessarily click on that one. I would rather you go to Visual Studio Community, which you can probably get to via the URL, but why not have the actual one that we need? Yeah, definitely different. All right, so if you want, refresh the homework Dropbox and you see visualstudio.microsoft.com/vs/community. Or you can do what I did, which is to go to Google and type in Visual Studio Community. Hopefully with not 2 C's, but it seemed to have found it anyways. You want the community version because it's free. If you choose enterprise or something like that, you're going to have to, after a while, it's going to, the demo period's going to run out and you're going to have to find out what you're going to do about it. So anyways, this takes a heck of a long time to download. So I'm not expecting you to get it all done right now. But when you're ready to, what you'll do, let me go ahead and pretend I'm starting it. Get back into Windows. Fine. All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. I'm going to have to go and quiet my cat in a minute. All right, so download Visual Studio Community. I'm going to start the download. And like I said, it takes a long time for it to run. So I need to send you a screenshot or something of the specific option that I want you to use. Now I've already got it installed, so I'm just going to cancel this. Sorry, I just saw a chat message come up. I'll check it. Which folder is not letting you submit? The Visual Studio one? Let me go check it. Oh, I must not have clicked save. Thought I did. I thought I fixed this. Let me fix it. I apologize for that. It says no points, no way to submit. My mistake. That will be fixed, and that will not happen on future assignments as long as I am careful. Alrighty, alrighty, alrighty. All right, so the folder, you can submit to the folder now. So I should be able to show you the screen that shows you which Visual Studio options you need if I just get into Visual Studio. So let me run it. I would like for you to have this done by Thursday, or excuse me, by Wednesday, if at all possible, although the due date for it is next Monday. Anyways, let's see if I can figure out how to configure it. I'm not seeing how to configure it from here. I'll find it later.
I have my installation selected.
All righty. If someone's talking, I can't hear you. Let me crank my volume way up. Yes, sir. Please repeat.
I have my Visual Studio installation options up if you want to share this request access.
We may need to switch to chat because it's probably my machine, but you're incredibly muffled. So if you want to send me a chat message reiterating that, and I apologize for that. Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. All righty. Excellent. So you got the installation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours. All righty. Feel free, unless there's something else I need to do. All right. I thought I saw it change, and then it didn't. Well, phooey. How do I enable your screen sharing? I definitely need to fix that, and I don't quite see the option how. Sorry, gang. We'll have this all ironed out for next time. I definitely want everybody to be able to share the screen as we go along. Yeah, I guess you could screenshot it and just upload it as a file. I'll figure it out. I apologize because in prior lectures during the spring, this actually was working fine. So I don't know what I've done to disable screen sharing. I don't know if I'd have to restart the meeting or what. All righty. So all right, I'm going to share again. So everybody's not just looking at a blank screen. All right, so here is what looks like. And one you specifically want is this one right here. Desktop development with C++. That's the one you want. Now, if you want to pick other ones, great. But you definitely want desktop development with C++. If you take C# over the fall, you're also going to want this, maybe these two. Very specifically that one, but this one might, I need to check into that one. So if you take C# over the fall, you're also going to want that one, but you absolutely want this one. Now you're good to go. You've selected all three of them, so you may as well just let them all three run. You can always come back and look at other things. It'd be a really interesting. I'd like to learn Unity. I'd like to teach a class on Unity. Anyways, or game programming with DirectX. That would be pretty awesome. I need to explore some of those. All right, so that's where you download it from. This is the option that you want. You want desktop development with C++, and it takes quite a while. Even if you're on a fast download, the campus has a really good connection to the internet, and it still takes my machine a long time to download it there. Far longer at home with my lousy internet. All right, so I'm going to go back in now, and we're going to actually cover the fun stuff, the syllabus. And by the way, if I ever get to a screen and you can't see it, let me know, right? And also, if my screen blanks out, I was doing a lecture earlier today and the share stopped, so nobody was seeing my screen and I didn't notice. So, you know, I went for like 15 minutes until somebody told me we can't see what's going on. Everybody, please rebel and tell me. All right, so you will need a C++ development tool. And yeah, I got an email questioning me about that. We don't meet on campus, of course, and you already know that now. But if this made you think that we were going to meet on campus, I apologize for that. It does say Zoom, though. All right. So, syllabus addendum. Every single class you take is probably going to cover this syllabus addendum. So, you may have read it 17 times already. I'm not going to cover it real carefully just for that reason. However, it is well worth reading. This is important, the academic integrity policy, but I will go into that further later. So I'm not going to talk about it now. So ADA accommodation. If you have some specific needs that'll help you learn, for example, if you're sitting in a lecture and you need to be on the front row, or you need the option to videotape or to audio record, you know, the lecture, and you're worried that your professor might not like that, or whatever, you can call these folks up. You can go to the Student Access Services, which is in the Learning Resource Center. The Learning Library is open this summer, even though a lot of buildings are locked up. So you can go there and they'll help you fill out a form, and the form will be sent to me and I can help you however you need. Now, I'm really willing to help you even if you don't go through that. And obviously recording and sitting in the front row are not things that you need to worry about this time. But if there's something that you need to help me or to help yourself, then go talk to these folks or just talk to me about it, right? And so this is pretty important stuff here. Mental health concerns or stressful events may lead to diminished academic performance. So for example, during the spring, all of a sudden we had a big event that happened in all of our lives that really messed things up. And I had a family member die of COVID, and that certainly was kind of reducing my ability to participate in daily activities and actually check these folks out. We have free counseling services. I don't know the details for how to get counseling services during the age of Corona during the summer, but I did talk to them on the phone and they directed me to somebody else. They're free, and what's more is that it's confidential, and what's even better is that it's actually good. They are good, skilled people. I've talked to them before. So this is awfully important as well. Failure to attend class and complete assignments by required due dates, specifically in the first week of the summer semester, you have to participate or you will be dropped from the class and then AW marked on your transcript. It'd be better just to drop the class, right? So if you're not going to participate, go ahead and just drop the class as soon as possible, right? Rather than get an AW marked on your transcript. If you get an AW on your transcript, you have to pay for it anyway, so you don't want to do that. Everybody listening is participating in the class, but just to prove it, you're going to want to upload something into that Lecture Zero Dropbox. You're going to want to put a comment or something just to prove that you're, attending class. Then, then you're good to go. All right, hopefully you know, but you may not know that you have student email. I just found out during my last lecture that this link is now broken. Student Rater Mail knowledge base article. But how do you get to it? I'm sure that there's some other fancy URL you can go to, but I always just go to gmail.com. And then when you get to Gmail, you can log in with your rater email address, which is just your first name dash last name. JG Thompson, or mine would be Jeffrey Thompson at rater.rose.edu, right? And so if you don't know your password, then you can contact the IT help desk and ask for it, and they'll reset it for you or whatever you need to do. So I don't send out a lot of email because I tend to just post announcements on Canvas, but it's not a bad idea. Oh, Visual Studio for Mac. No thanks. All right. Get back to where we were. So Title IX, the Learning Resources Center, the Center for Success, Inclusion, and Diversity, the Career Center, and the Student Handbook. So do look all this stuff over. Now the Student Handbook, cool document. It's about 200 pages long, so it's not like, okay, only 95. I exaggerated slightly. I would just look at the table of contents and figure out what's in this thing that you might want to read, right? And then you can go back and you can pick and choose specifically what kind of stuff you want to read. I certainly never had the patience to read through from beginning to end. So speaking of email, if you send me email, it's a good idea to shoot me a text message as well, just to make absolutely sure that I read it promptly, right? I answer text messages more quickly than I answer email, the vast majority of the time. So if you're sitting there waiting for me to do something and I haven't done it yet, just send me a text message. As a matter of fact, if everybody would be so kind, I thought I'd posted an announcement to that effect, but if everybody would be so kind as to send me a text message, just put your name and then C++, and I will know who you are. I will add you to my contacts list, and that way if you call me, then your name's on my screen, or if you text me and vice versa. So anyways, please send me a text at 405-898-767 with your name and the class, C++. Feel free to text me at any time. And why would you ever want to text me? You could text me because you're stuck on a programming problem. If you can't figure out something and it just won't compile or it's crashing for some reason, just take a picture of your code and send it to me along with the question. And sometimes I can just look at it and give you an answer within a minute, right? Sometimes it's a more complicated process and you may have to email me, some code or something like that. But quite often I can help you very, very quickly just from a picture. So the people who take advantage of that tend to get more of their homework done. So it's a good thing to do. So don't be shy about it. If you have had me in a prior class, please go ahead and do this again because I need to update your comment, your contact. And usually I go through and I delete all the prior semester's contacts, between semesters anyway. So if you'd be so kind as to do so, whether you've had me before or not. All right, back to the syllabus. Gonna need a textbook. If you have classes that are using MindTap, Canvas, CEngage, this is not a CEngage textbook. So you can get it however you want to, as a Kindle, as an ebook, whatever. I just would not rent it and then forget to give it back. If you go to the bookstore and then you have the option of renting it or buying it, just remember that if you rent it and then don't give it back to them, they charge you more for it than if you'd bought it off the top of your head. All right, so here's my information. I have an office on campus that I'm not at very often during the summer, and the building is locked, so you can't get in there anyways. So if you want to talk to me, if you want to meet up with me, then we need to set an appointment with each other, and we'll probably meet at the LRC or something like that. So we use Canvas, as you know, since we're looking at it right here. The grade scale is pretty boring. 90 is an A, 80 is a B, 70 is a C, and so on. Now, if there's something really, really weird going on, then the grades might be curved a little bit over the coronavirus spring, I wound up curving grades up by about 3 or 4% to make sure that we had a lot of A's and B's. Normally I don't, but if you are sitting at an 89, right, an 89.5, I'm probably going to get you the A or whatever, the 90, right? And if you miss it by one point, you'd be kind of disappointed. So here's one caveat though. You do have to do at least 50% of your homework. So if you're taking the class and you're attending the lectures and you're planning on taking the exams but not doing any homework, then you're not going to pass the course. So doing the homework is really important. And if you're getting stuck on your homework and falling behind on your homework, it's cause for alarm, and let me know and I will work with you on it. And so students who are caught plagiarizing or cheating will receive an F for the class, and a record of the incident will be provided to the Dean of the School of Business. Cheating includes turning in somebody else's work or turning in completed files found online or from the book's disk as completed assignments. Well, this book doesn't come with a disk, so I need to edit that. But anyways, there's no tolerance for this class or on the college campus. So every assignment, all your homework needs to include both the screenshot and the programming script, even if I don't remember to put that in the instructions. Like if we go to modules here and you look at your homework assignment and it doesn't say, give me a screenshot and the source code file, do so anyways. Now the exception is homework 0, right? Because it's very specific. It wants you to take a screenshot. There's no source code file to upload. So required software, you need C++ development software. You can even get to some online if you need to. Like I said, just look up online C++ compiler. All right. You're responsible for attending the class, having access to a computer, reading and using the textbook and the handouts, keeping up with the schedule, and getting assignments done on time. Now, this didn't talk about a late penalty, did it? I need to tell you about that. Need to edit this. Since this class is an 8-week class rather than a 16-week class, being 2 weeks late on a homework assignment is the same thing as being a month late during spring or fall. So we're going to add a late penalty here, which is assignments more than 1 week late, get half credit. Assignments more than 2 weeks late, get no credit. Now, if there's something going on in your life, right, you have to fly up to Wisconsin, you know, to handle your grandmother's, you know, bereavement or something like that, right? Then let me know, talk to me about it. And I do understand when life situations come up, right? So if you talk to me about it beforehand, then you can probably convince me to give you credit anyways. But don't wait until the last 2 weeks of the semester and then say, well, you know, work was really hard, so I didn't get any work done. And so can I make it up now, right? Don't wait until the last week to do that. Something happened. Okay, there we go. All righty. And so what am I responsible for? I gave you a whole bunch of responsibilities. I need to provide the course content. I do in the form of my lectures and in the form of the PowerPoints and then the homework assignments. I need to give you a course schedule. Everything we do is posted in the assignments folder. So you'll have all the due dates there. I need to create a box there for the midterm and final as well, so that you'll know when those are coming up. Providing support is needed. Usually students find me really easy to work with. Just text me, I'm happy to help. And providing content demonstrations. I will give, as part of my lectures, right, I will be typing code in. If you want to try typing the code in as well, if you can arrange the windows on your screen so that you can do that. Oh, here it is. Okay, now that's for the summer one. I mean, that's for the fall. So I just need to move that date over there. So if you miss a class lecture, you need to watch a video. Well, and you're missing every class, so you're going to watch all the lectures, right? But you can do it online. But I always upload the lectures. And if you miss a day, it's no problem at all. Just watch the video of it, right? I'll usually get it posted within an hour of the lecture concluding. So, you know, since we're going to probably end our lecture like at 9 today, if not before, we're not going to actually do a huge amount of lecturing. This is the one day that we might get out a little bit early. Then you can just go to that day's lecture and then just watch the video, fill out the form, and you're good to go. Just like it was live, right? Not a lot of people are talking, so you could have just been watching it on YouTube. Now, although I say that, I think that the people who actually attend the lectures get more out of it because you can interrupt and ask for questions, right? You can't ask for help. And if you're typing along, if you can find some way to do that, I think a lot of students get a lot of benefit out of that. It's just unfortunate that we're not on campus where you have the campus computers in front of you, right? So I don't know how you'd arrange that. If you can fit both the window and your Visual Studio window on screen at the same time, or if you have a 2-monitor setup, or you're going to watch on the laptop and type code in on the whatever. And if you can't, that's fine, right? I just know that people get bored listening to me drone on and then seeing letters appear on the screen, right? And so it helps maintain focus. And so academic integrity, I will just mention again, please do not get programs from somebody else who's taken the class in the past. I usually change the homework assignment every semester anyways. Or you're living with somebody who's a professional C++ programmer who's taken the class in the past and you ask them to write it. Or if you have a roommate who's taken it at the same time as you may be tempted to both sit down at the same computer and to write the program at the same time, or only one of you do it. Please don't do that, because that does count as academic. It counts as cheating, and it's bad news. Now, cheating on exams, when you take the exam, you're going to be using an online service named ProctorU, or you're going to go to the testing center at the library. And either way, it would be very difficult to cheat. ProctorU is a camera. I mean, they don't have a camera, but they require you to switch on your laptop camera or whatever, and they watch your screen. And so they're supervising you just like you get supervised at the testing center. And then it says, what could cheating on an exam be? Copying another student's answers? Yeah, that'd be bad. Exchanging information, using notes or books, especially unless expressly permitted. Now, I do allow you to use your notes in your books, right? So you can take your textbook into it. If you have it on Kindle or something, we may have to make sure that the testing center would let you do that. But otherwise, you're allowed to use the PowerPoints. You're allowed to use anything that's uploaded into Canvas. So anything that you've done as homework, or if you upload note files to a lecture file, right? If you type in a whole bunch of cool stuff and you want to stick it in Lecture A so that you can access it later during the exam, that's totally cool, right? So it's open book, open notes, open PowerPoints. It's all good. And so if you give your homework to somebody else and they copy it and submit it, then you're considered a cheater as well. And I know that that could be a real drag, because sometimes people will say, man, I just can't figure it out. Can you send me your code? I can spot the problem. And well, usually they haven't even started when they say that, right? And then they turn yours in as their own. And they may not even change the name up at the top of the program, right? And then it becomes real obvious, and then it becomes a real problem. So anyways, don't loan your work out to somebody else. Consequences, the very least that will happen, I stayed up further that you get an automatic F in the class, but the very least that will happen is that you get an F for that assignment, quiz, or an exam. You get reported to the division dean and the director of student conduct. And all right, that's about enough of that. That's too negative. Just don't do it, right? Typically what happens is somebody gets stuck on a programming problem, and then they try and they Google for help, and Googling for help is always a great idea. I strongly encourage you to do it. What's not a great idea is going to Stack Overflow and copying an entire program, pasting and uploading, and hoping you'll get some credit. I will be able to tell that you didn't write it because I will know your relative level of knowledge, and the people who post to Stack Overflow, eclipse both of us. All right. Does that make sense, gang? Anybody have any questions over what we have talked about? Did anybody get Visual Studio installed? I know some people already have it. All right, y'all are being real quiet. Everybody awake? Yep. All righty. Some people are awake. Thanks. All righty. Normally this is during when we're meeting on campus, this is about where I would end the class. I would say, okay, we've done enough. But since this is an 8-week course, we'd better go ahead and press on just a little bit further. So talking about the homework that we're going to be doing, let me post this README file that I need to let you see and make it real easy for you to understand exactly what we're going to be doing each time. I forgot to upload it to this one, so I'll copy it from this one. So read me first. What are you going to do? You got to watch the first lecture. This is for an online course, right? But I'm still giving the lectures live anyways. Be sure to watch and submit the required note before the end of the first week. Be sure to read the syllabus. And then from here on out, what are you going to do? You're going to watch lectures, either attend them in person or whatever, 2 a week. When you're done with the lecture, you're going to fill out the video review form. During the lecture or attached to the folder, there will be another folder that's the homework assignment. So you're going to do that. You do it within a week of the lecture, right? So if I give homework tonight, which I'm gonna, then by Monday of next week, you need to have uploaded it. Now, the homework is just install Visual Studio, right? And so you may get that done by the end of the evening, or you may already have it installed, whatever, right? You don't postpone it just deliberately. Just get it done as soon as possible. Because if you wait until the night before to even start it, then you're getting into the late assignment business. And then so every time you do that, you're going to submit a screenshot showing the code and the output window. All right, it looks like I have some bad writing there. I will have to fix that because you're supposed to give me both the source code, which is a CPP file, and the screenshot. And this is talking about MindTap, and we're not using MindTap. So when I copy and paste this README document, then that's not going to be in there. All right. Then we will have quizzes, chapter quizzes. Oh, I hate quizzes. No, these quizzes are good quizzes. Why are they good quizzes? Because they prepare you for the exams. Well, yeah, that's what they all say. You get to take it as many times as you want to get a perfect grade. And if you get stuck on a quiz question, just text me, right? Snap a picture of the question, text me, and I'll probably just flat out give you the answer, right? Or I may even record a mini lecture for everybody to see, right? So you can do real well on the quizzes if you try. You can take them several times, see which ones you got wrong, redo them. Now, when you submit a quiz, I have to go back and grade it in by hand because any fill in the blank kind of thing is probably going to be marked as wrong or as ungraded. And so it's going to show you as making only a 50% or whatever, right? So if you ever feel like it, if you ever, itchy for me to grade something that I haven't graded yet, because I'm going to try to get everything graded, within a couple of days of it being submitted. But if you're itchy, go ahead and text me a message saying, could you grade chapter 5's quiz? And I'll go, yeah, I'll go do that. And that way you'll know if you need to take it again or not. I don't have any samples here yet, but we'll have one soon enough. All right, so that's the README first. You can take the quizzes as many times as you want to get a perfect score. There'll be a midterm and a final. Okay, now that you've read this, go watch the first lecture. Okay, well, you already have. I'll edit that later to make it all tidy, but I just want to get that text pasted into it so I don't forget. All right, let's go look at the PowerPoints. Now, the first chapter of almost every programming class textbook is something like the history of programming and what is a computer and what is an input-output device. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that, right? But let's go and at least take a look at it. Why program? Well, because we want to make money. That's why. Alrighty. The programmer is the person who writes the instructions to make a computer perform a task. Makes sense to me. So without programmers, you don't get any programs. And without the programs, the computer can't do anything. I wonder why these little previews aren't showing up here like they're supposed to. Oh, well. Computer systems, hardware and software. Hardware is anything you can touch, right? Break your phone open, you pull out the circuits, that's the hardware. The central processing unit, main memory, secondary memory, storage, input and output. All right, well, let's just talk in terms of laptops, right? Your laptop's got an Intel or an AMD CPU in it, right? But there's more to it. There's a lot more chips in it than just that, right? There are disk drive controllers and this, that, and the other. But fundamentally, there's something called the central processing unit. And all the central processing unit can do is handle numbers. And so if it has to handle a photograph, it converts a photograph to numbers, right? If it has to handle music, then the music is converted to numbers. If it needs to handle text, like you're writing something, then those text, all those letters are converted to numbers. And so main memory is like when you buy your computer and it's a 16 gigabytes, right? Or your phone has 8 gigabytes of RAM in it, whatever. The secondary memory is the hard drive in it, or the flash drive, the solid state drive that's in it. So you buy your phone and it's got, 256, gigabytes of secondary storage in it so that you can load it up with a whole bunch of apps and memes and things. And your input devices are your keyboard and your mouse. And nowadays, lots of things have touch screens as well, right? Also your camera and your microphone. Output devices are typically the screen, right? But nowadays screens are kind of cool and some of them vibrate, and haptic devices, and you also have printers and stuff. Well, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be letting stuff that lets you type in and it displays on a screen. That's pretty much going to be the extent of our input and our output in this class. We will talk about memory again at a later point, but not in terms of hardware. So a central processing unit is a control unit and an arithmetic and logic unit. I have a really cool lecture that I give about the fundamentals of a basic program, a computer. I need to find that lecture. I need to make it. I need to make a video of it because you couldn't just really get the idea from me. Maybe I could do it with annotation. Anyways, we may work on that. All right. Main memory is composed of bits. Got zeros and ones in it. 8 bits in a row is called a byte. And so every kind of data we store in the computer is stored as bytes. And then the bytes are recorded fundamentally in your RAM and on your secondary storage as zeros and ones. And so there's different kinds of data types that C++ supports. There are 4-byte numbers and then there are 8-byte numbers. A 4-byte number can hold up to about 2 billion. And an 8-byte number can hold up to about 340 super quadzillion or something like that. So we get to specify whether we want a 4-byte number or an 8-byte number by what's known as a data type. If you took Python and you said x is equal to 3, you didn't have any control over what data type it was. But in this language, you can say int x is equal to 3. And since it's an int, that should be a lowercase, then that's a 4-bit type. 4-byte type. So it can hold up to about 2 billion. If the number needs to be larger than 2 billion, you're going to use what's known as a long int. I'm sorry that it sounds so silly, long. You can leave off the word int though. And it holds much larger numbers, right? That was supposed to be an equal sign. All right, so that can hold a huge numbers. If you need even huger numbers, I like that, huger numbers, then you can use something called a double. These are integer types. They hold whole numbers, right? 1, 2, 3. What if you need 1.1 or 2.2? Those are floating point numbers. There's also a kind called a float. It's a 4-byte data type. It can hold larger numbers than either an int or a long. But don't use floats. Use doubles. Because they are 8-byte data types. Floating point types of any kind are prone to what are known as rounding errors, but using a double minimizes the rounding errors, and I'll talk about that at some future point, what a rounding error is. So just never bother typing in the word float and always go for double. On the other hand, go ahead and just use ints rather than longs, because if you're just recording somebody's age, I am 39 years old, it's not going to get to be more than, 2 billion or whatever. So your memory is arranged consecutively just as a series of addresses, with the first one being 0, the next one being 1, all the way to all 8, billion bytes, because giga means billion, right? or 16 gigabytes or whatever. Now your program doesn't have access to that much RAM. We can run our programs out of RAM pretty easily by writing something that would just keeps asking for memory and never releases it. Each program on Windows is limited in the number of bytes, but we could try to compile it so that it could use more, compile it in such a way anyways. So secondary storage is known as non-volatile. Volatile means it gets lost when you turn your device off, right? When you restart your phone, then the volatile information is gone. Well, your phone caches almost everything to the flash drive, right? And so even when you turn your phone back on, just about everything is still there. But you're familiar with your computer, right? You turn your laptop off, then when the next time you reload it, then your Word document may be gone, right? If you never had saved it. Input devices, output devices, software, programming and programming languages. What is a program? It's a set of instructions that the computer follows to perform a task. We start with an algorithm, which is a set of well-defined steps. So for example, to calculate gross pay, like you can read this. Why is that so tiny? Here's our algorithm. Display a message on the screen asking how many hours did you work? Wait for the user to enter the number of hours worked. Once the user enters the number stored in memory. And we'll actually do this on Wednesday. Display a message on the screen saying how much did you get paid per hour? Wait for the user to enter an hourly pay rate. Once the user enters that number, you store it in memory. Then multiply the number of hours by the amount paid per hour and store the result in memory. Now, this does not allow time and a half. It's harsh, right? You know, if we work 60 hours that week and we have a time and a half job, we really would like that bonus pay. So we could modify this algorithm to support that. And then display a message on the screen that tells the amount of money earned, right? The message must include the result of step 5. All right, so that's our algorithm. It's just a recipe for solving a little problem. What is machine language? That's going to take a whole lecture, but a machine language are the numeric commands that control the processor. And I don't have an example of machine language for you, but I can give you the next best thing, which is assembly language examples. Trying to find a good document. All right. So here we go. Here's our assembly language. It's just a series of numbers. Now the numbers translate into these little mnemonics, right? I'm going to load into accumulator A, a certain number. I'm going to load into something else, this, and then I'm going to jump to a memory address called sign on. And well, we'd have to find sign on. Anyway, this is almost incomprehensible unless, you know, we don't want to have to program like this. This is assembly, but it's the closest thing we have to machine language. And machine language would be just if you created a file that was just pure numbers like this, rather than this part, which are the words, right? This is called assembly because it's the next easier than writing pure numbers, right? And at least we have something we can look at and some comments that explain what it's doing. But we don't want to write code like that. This is what's known as a low-level programming language. Low level because it's real close to the metal, right? It's hardly above the pure numbers that drive the CPU. We like high-level programming languages. High-level programming languages, you know, allow us to use like English-like words. And so we have these words that we can use like return and int, short for integer, and float, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And we can use algebraic notation, right? We can say x is equal to y plus 2. So high-level languages are far easier to code in, which is why almost nobody codes in assembler anymore. So machine language instructions are just ultimately zeros and ones. Types of language. The low-level languages used for communication with computer hardware directly. If you're writing device drivers to control, you know, some kind of equipment, you might wind up writing it in a low-level programming language. Or you'd probably write it in C, which compiles real cleanly, rather than C++. And then a high-level language is closer to human language. There's all sorts of high-level languages, C++, Ruby, Java, Visual Basic, right? All sorts of them. So typically, what are you going to do to write a high-level program? And we're just about to gonna stop here. But what do? You create a text file that contains the program. Now, my text files are just going to be created with Visual Studio, right? But you could do it with Notepad. You could compile, you could write a program using any kind of editor that you wanted, as long as you could save it as a text file. Now, it'd be absolutely insane to try to write a program using Word, right? But you could create something and save it as a .txt file, and then you could compile and run it. So if I was going to start this process off, I'm going to make a new project. I want it to be a console app. So this is the one that you're going to always choose right there. If you're doing it in Visual Studio, you're going to choose console app, but not .NET, just the one that says console app. And I will work through this much more slowly the next lecture. So I'm not expecting you to follow along. I just want to be able to toggle between this and that slide for it to make any sense. Okay, so here we have a source file. It's just a TXT file. This one is called lecturea.cpp. That's going to be what I want you to upload when you upload your homework. You're going to need to go and find that CPP file. Well, gosh, how do I find it? Where do I know where it's stored? You do View Solution Explorer. Again, I'll talk to this again on Wednesday, so it'll be real familiar to you by then. And then Solution Explorer, which honestly is usually on this side of the screen. You can right-click on it and do Open Folder in File Explorer. And there you find it, right? Source, repos, Lecture A. I might really want to just take this folder right here, this repos directory or this source directory, and just drag it over here into my favorites so that I can find it each time I need it, right? That way I can just double click on it and I can go and find my lecture and I can submit the CPP file. Now you want the CPP file when you upload. And again, I'll cover this on Wednesday's lecture. I can tell which file I need by the fact that they have file extensions. But you may not get to see file extensions. And that's because there's a checkbox here, that file name extensions. If it's turned off, then the .cpp doesn't show up. Now that's really annoying. Yes, you can scroll over here and see .cpp, but I strongly recommend that you do enable file extensions. And you can do so either through the view options or depending upon which version of Windows you're using, you can do under folder and search options. You just click on view, and where it says hide extensions for known file types, well, that's a bunch of nonsense. I want to see my file extensions. I like seeing .doc at the end of Word documents and .exe at the end of programs and stuff like that. All right, so now that I've done that, anyways, so to quickly step through that again, right click on the solution, do open in File Explorer, and then I can find my CPP file. It'll usually be stored in a subfolder of it. If you want, you can zip up the entire project. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but you can give me the entire project. But for the beginning projects, we only have one file, so you may as well just send me the .cpp file, so no reason to zip it. All right, so this is a text file that's got our code. Let's go back and compare that to our slide. Create a file containing the program. Now run the preprocessor to convert the source file, and then run the compiler to convert the source program into machine instructions, and then run the linker to connect hardware-specific code. Now, fortunately, all three of these things are done by just pressing a button on our user interface. This is what's known as an IDE, an integrated development environment that has both the text editor and how you compile and link your code all at one time. So all I have to do is come up here and click debug, start debugging, or build solution, and it'll compile it. Now there may be errors. I may have to look at the error list down here to find out what's wrong, like if I left off a semicolon. Then when I try to run it, it's not going to run. And now this message, very important note here, where it says, do not show this diagram again. Do not click that on the error screen. And for heaven's sake, do not say, do not show this dialog again, and then run the last successful build. That'll just so mess you up. Why? Because you'll never know that you have any errors. You won't be seeing the error messages unless you happen to be watching this error list, and it'll keep running the last good version of it. And so you'll wonder why the changes you're typing in don't have any effect. So please do not do that. Do not show this dialog again for errors. And of course, I don't want to run the last successful build. I want to fix it. So I would go to the error list and I would see, okay, expected a semicolon. I just double click on the line and hopefully it'll take me close to where I need to go to fix it. Sometimes it goes to the next line, but you know that the problem is either on this line or on this line. And in this case, it is the semicolon. And now I can run it. So after I build it, I can run the debugger and it runs the exe. And this looks different on the Mac, but it all makes sense. Instead of running it as a separate window like this one's about to do, it just runs it with a little window down here where you can type in your text and see your output. And so there we go. The program ran and did hello world, right? And then I can close it. Now, if your program is closing without you getting a chance to see it, and the older versions of Visual Studio did this, and it was really annoying. If your program closes before you get a chance to see the output, then you can add a system pause command at the end of it. But I don't think we're going to have to do that because it looks like the newest version of Visual Studio keeps that window open. And I'm so thankful for that because for years I've had to tell students to type this at the bottom. What does it do? It just runs a pause command that says press any key to continue. That's just like if you had loaded up, if you're using your Windows 10 and you open up the command prompt like I did earlier, like this, and I type in pause, press any key to continue. Well, why would I want that? Well, if I was creating a batch file, right, or a CMD file, and I might want to, echo hello, and then I might want to pause, right? And so with my batch file, that pause command is useful. And then when I run it, it says hello, and then it pauses, press any key to continue, right? So anyways, we're not gonna have to do that, but if your program is closing, then you can add that to it. You can also add it just when you want to differentiate different parts of the program. Like if you wanted to say hello and then you wanted to say goodbye. Now, it doesn't work on the Mac, so I may not rely upon that too much. You might be able to find a different command that does. But when you call system, all you're doing is asking the operating system to run an executable. It could be anything. You could launch Word from the middle of your program, right? Or any app. Instead, we're just running the pause program. Anyway, so if I run it now, it's going to print hello world, and then it's going to say press any key to continue. And if I hit enter, it's then going to display goodbye. So I could use pause for that purpose. But since we have Mac users, I'm not going to rely on it. And that's not a ding on the Mac users. It's just that when you run the Mac terminal, Macs are awesome. Macs are essentially Linux. This is a Unix shell here. It's just Linux controlled by one person rather than open source, of course, right? And it's controlled by Apple. But anyways, even parts of this are open sourced. It relies upon something called BSD Darwin, and the source for Darwin is published. But anyways, I don't know the name of the command for the Mac terminal that would pause the output. There are other ways to accomplish the same thing, but I'm not going to worry about it. So we probably won't be doing that. All right, so from our slide, run the preprocessor, use the compiler, run the linker. I will tell you at a later point what those 3 steps mean. And then errors detected at any step will prevent the execution of the following steps. So what does a preprocessor do? If you ever see these commands with the hashes in front of them, that's called a preprocessor directive. like that. What that does is it goes out and searches for the file called IOStream, and it brings it in as though it were part of our source code. And so you can have other preprocessor commands too, like # define the word woogie to mean std : cout. All right, and then I could replace all of these with the word woogie. Now that sure was fun. How about these arrows? I'm going to define something boogie. Now this is idiotic, right? But you can do it, right? You can effectively create your own language because you're creating these macros. And when the preprocessor run, it brings this file in and it goes and replaces every woogie with std : cout and every boogie with that, right? Say you like curly braces to be the word begin. Now I will never do this again because this is absolutely, somebody else who looked at your code would be appalled. But, you know, I could define the word begin to look like an open brace and # the word in to look like a closed brace. This is looking like, you know, some language that was invented in the 1950s or 60s or something like that, right? There we go, right? And the program will still run. Isn't that bizarre? So that's what the preprocessor does, is it goes through the source code, replacing everything defined with these macros and bringing in these # include files. Once that is done, the compiler runs. The compiler runs through and turns all of the source code into what's called an OBJ file, an object code file, which is machine language instructions. But it's not ready to run yet. It's not an executable or a .app file. So something called the linker has to go in and stitch those OBJ files, because I may create a project that has 70 or 80 different CPP files, different C++ files. Complex projects have more than one CPP file. So the compiler goes and it turns all of those C files into OBJ files, but then the linker goes and it hooks up all those OBJ files into an executable. And the executable creates an exe, or an app that we can then run. Now you're going to have to worry too much about that? No, because like I said, you're just going to click the run button. Now we could make it to where you run it by hand, right? The Mac users and our Linux users, I could have you open a terminal and type in slang followed by a file name, you know, and you know we could be you know, doing our programming right from the command prompt. And so we would issue compiler commands and linker commands just by typing them in like that, like we were rocking in 1970. All right, this is where we're going to stop. Integrated development environments. Visual Studio is an integrated development. Code Warrior is an antique one. This slide must have been written a long time ago. Even though it says 2018, that should be Xcode. I don't think people use Code Warrior anymore. All right, and so it's an integrated development environment because you get to write your file, you get to compile it, and you get to debug it all in a single application, which is far easier than what it used to be when you had to do everything from the command prompt. All righty, so we're stopping on slide 24. We really don't have very many notes. I mean, I could upload this, but this is so horrible that I don't think that I want to upload it. Maybe if I undo all those macros. Yeah, I'll put that in our notes, right? But then I'll also make the comment that we got to page 24 of chapter 1. And we'll probably spend, you know, another 15, 20 minutes on that chapter the next day. But then we're going to get to the good stuff, which is actually how to program. So now that we're done, you're just going to want to go to Lecture A. And if you feel, and download the lecture video form and type it in and upload it. If you want to, just this one time, you can skip it. And when you submit to it, add a text comment saying you were here, right? Or if you want to practice, go ahead and download the lecture video form and then upload it. And that'll get you credit for today. And what's your homework? It's to install Visual Studio or another C++ compiler and take a screenshot. If you don't know how to take screenshots, I think I created a document called screenshots, but then somebody pointed out that you can just use what's it called snip on Windows. I always just use the print screen button. Press print screen and then go and open up Word or Paint and paste and then upload that, right? And there's different ways on the Mac. If you need to know how to take a screenshot on the Mac, I can find it for you, but you can use Google as just as easily as I do. I personally use a utility called GSO, spelled with a G, because it lets me click on it and then I can highlight a part of the screen and then it uploads it to the file, to the internet, and I can mail a link to that to somebody if I want to, or I can copy and paste it. So that's how I take screenshots. You'll see me do that occasionally. All righty, gang. Are there any questions? So you have your marching orders. I would recommend getting plus. Whoopsie, I see a chat message. All righty. Yep, Visual Basic is an excellent language. I wish we haven't taught it here in a couple of years because people stopped enrolling in it, but I love Visual Basic. It's so easy to create graphical user interfaces. Oh yeah, you're right. When I was making my macro, exactly. Yeah. I was making it look like BASIC kind of unconsciously. If I wanted to continue in that train, then yeah. Anyways, so where was I going with that? I think we're done. Get your compiler, your development tools installed by Wednesday, if at all possible, because starting as Wednesday, we're going to have some real homework to do. So is anybody capable? I mean, who all is actually going to be willing to try to type along with me? I'm just curious about that. I've had students in the past for the online courses do that, but a lot don't like it. And it's fine either way, as long as you stay awake. All right, that's cool. Cool. All right. Okay, gang. Oh, there's my cat. You heard him meowing earlier. Go ahead and upload something to it. You would have to try really hard to not get full credit for a lecture review form. Now, if you just typed, I hate you, professor, I might get my feelings hurt or whatever. But as long as you type in a couple sentences about what we talked about, you're good to go. The more detailed you make the notes, the better it is for you because you can refer to those notes again, like during the exam, right? But you always also have my notes. I always upload everything I type in. All right, gang, it's been a pleasure. I will save the video and upload it to YouTube for the benefit of anybody who wasn't here, and I'll do that each time. So we're getting out a little bit early this time. I don't mind that. In the future, we will use up much more of our time, but we may break like, an hour, give ourselves a 5-minute break halfway through the class. All righty. So any questions before I stop it? Guess not. Later.